What's up, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the CBB Yapper. I'm your host, Cam, and if you couldn't tell by my hat, I am a Duke fan. But I do love college basketball just in general, and I'll yap about anything under the sun in regards to college basketball. For the first episode, I wanted to keep things a little brief. I wanted to go over some of the games that I've watched in the past couple weeks, my current top 25 as I see it, as well as some of the games that I'm looking forward to this weekend. So without further ado, let's get into it. For the first episode, I just wanted to start out with some of the games that I've watched previously and just give some of my thoughts on what happened, as there was a lot of big games that happened in the past week for college basketball. First up on the docket, I had Kansas Iowa State. I had this game circled before the week as one of the biggest games of the week, and was pretty much disappointed by how that ended up turning out. I wanted to see two of the best teams in the Big 12 face off against each other. Was definitely looking to see a little bit more of a competitive game. But I think this game really just showed us what Kansas has at full strength. I mean, Darren Peterson is easily one of the best teams in the country, or players in the country, excuse me. Going up against Iowa State, one of the best teams in the country, certainly top five at this point. And I really just think that they showed that they're kind of hitting their stride here. Now that Peterson is kind of getting more back into the swing of things, I know he's still dealing with a little bit of cramping, but it seems like he's certainly getting back into playing full time. And if he is, Kansas is going to be a team to watch till the end. I mean, Darren Peterson is probably the best player in the nation, just in terms of skill. But if they can keep this going, I certainly do not see how they won't finish the top 15 by the end of the year. Next up, I had UVA Louisville. This was another game that I had looking forward uh, on my docket going into the week, but just another disappointing game. Once Michael Brown got ruled out for the game, it was pretty evident that this wasn't going to be as good of a game as it could have been. But it just shows that UVA has what it takes to dominate some teams. It didn't really feel like they blew Louisville out by any means, but it certainly didn't seem like they were going to lose that game at any point. Louisville battled back and brought it within, I think, five a couple times, but UVA had a pretty strong hold on that game throughout. Listen, if Michael Brown gets healthy, Louisville is going to be very good. With Conwell, they have two guards that can just score. Michael Brown's more of a traditional point guard, so he's going to be more initiating that offense for them. But without him, they just really look like they don't really have much of an identity on offense. McNeely certainly showed up and showed that he can provide some of that scoring output as well, alongside Conwell when he's having a little bit of off games. But until they get Michael Brown fully healthy, it's just hard to give this Louisville team a fair look. I personally believe that they're really good. I think that they're going to be there at the end of the year. I think that they're going to rival Duke for the ACC championship by the end of the year as well. There's a couple teams in the ACC that certainly deserve that nod, but Louisville, I believe, is at the top when they're fully healthy. Next up, I have UNC Stanford. Certainly not what I was expecting. I was more expecting UNC to kind of figure things out here and turn it around. But that is certainly not what happened. This Okori kid can ball. Top 10 scorer in the nation. Obviously doesn't look like he's going to be slowing down anytime soon. Uh, but I really just think that this kind of showed what UNC's kryptonite is, and that's good guard play. I mean, they gave up 36 to Okori, and then last week they got torched by Boopy Miller. Um, so I just think it's becoming a common theme. If the other team has a better guard than UNC, it just seems like they're going to struggle. Their front court is awesome, can hang with anybody with Vasar and Caleb Wilson. Caleb Wilson is clearly one of the best players in the nation, certainly one of the best freshmen in the nation. But until they figure out their guard spots, I just really don't think that they're going to be there at the end of the year. I think they'll make March Madness, of course, one, just because of their name, and two, just because of their talent. But yeah, until they figure out the guard spot, they're going to just be really disappointed for the rest of the year, I think. Seth Trimble also just really weird. My brother's a UNC fan, so he mentioned this to me as well. Um, Seth Trimble has really just dipped in free throw percentage. I mean, he was one of the top free throw shooters in the ACC last year, and now I believe he's shooting below 70% from the line. just something out not uncharacteristic for him. Don't think that that's going to continue, but just something to monitor for the rest of the year. Could certainly have something to do with the injury that he faced earlier in the year and sidelining him for a couple weeks. But yeah, Stanford, I mean, Okori, look out for this kid. If you haven't watched Stanford yet, definitely recommend going and watching them. I mean, he's one of the best freshmen in the nation, of course, and yeah, they're going to give some ACC teams some problems. I'm looking forward to watching them up against Duke this weekend. Obviously, I'm a Duke fan, so I will be watching that one. But yeah, really interested to see how Duke defends Okori and how they try to take him out of the game. Up next, I had UConn and Seton Hall. I was really interested in this game just because the Big East is just kind of lackluster right now. Other than UConn, they don't really have any great teams. I think they have a lot of good teams, just not a lot of great teams. Um, Kind of showed me what Seton Hall is all about. They're all about defense. They're going to grind you out, play great defense, and make you score in uncharacteristic ways. They're going to try and make you score off the dribble a lot. But it also showed me that they just really are missing 3-point shooting. I mean, they shot 1 for 16 from deep, 60% from the line, and still only lost by 5. I think that's definitely a positive sign. It shows that they can certainly hang with the top teams in the nation. But until they can figure out a decent a clip from deep, it's just going to be tough for them to compete with these better teams. I do think they're one of the best teams in the Big East. I personally think that Villanova is just slightly ahead of them right now, as well as St. John's. But I think all three of those teams are pretty close to each other, with Creighton just behind them. Um, and UConn is what they are. They're going to be a top 10 team until the end of the year. They're very good, well coached, good on offense, good on defense, just all around good team. I really don't think they're ever going to fall out of the top 10 this year. I don't think anybody in the Big East is really going to give them too much of a run for their money. So I think they're kind of just going to dominate that from uh, the beginning of the year to the end. Lastly, another game that I was really looking forward to, Vanderbilt and Texas, which kind of turned into a boat race in Austin. Vanderbilt was never really out of the game, but it certainly didn't feel like they were going to win it either. Texas has been playing great recently. I watched them play in person down in Charlotte versus Duke, and was impressed with what they had. Just didn't think that they were quite there yet. But as of right now, I think despite the slow start, they're really looking like a top 30 team. Vanderbilt's still really solid. I don't necessarily think this game should tarnish their reputation much. And their guard tandem's going to take them really far. I mean, Tyler Tanner's an awesome player. I love watching him play. But just a bad shooting night along with some foul trouble just kind of led to a blowout in Austin. Certainly expecting them to bounce back here, but yeah, just a disappointing outcome for them. Aside from just those games that I watched this week, I could sit here and yap about them all day. But let's get into my current top 25 rankings for the season. At number one, this should be no surprise. It's Arizona. They're the best team in the country right now. Don't think there's a debate for that. Undefeated, beat UConn, who I believe is the second best team in the nation. Multiple wins by 20 plus, 7 players averaging 9 over, 5 in double figures. Koa Pete, one of the best players in the nation, if not the best player in the nation. They just play elite team basketball. They're just a really fun team to watch. And I think that they're going to be a Final Four team at the end of the year. I really don't think that there's any other team that has the resume they do right now, as well as just the dominance that they've been showing. But I do think this next team could potentially rival them later on in the season, and that is UConn. I put UConn number 2 after the ISU blowout to Kansas, excuse me. Um, UConn's just elite. Hurley's going to always have them boys playing at a top level throughout the year. Solo Ball and Caravan can carry the offense any night. And Terrace Reed's been giving them really good rim protection. He's averaging around 2 blocks per game this year. I just think they have a lot in different areas that makes them really versatile, and just gives them a different look compared to other teams that are going to be there at the end of the year. I certainly think they're an Elite Eight team, and could easily see them getting another Final Four here. Hurley's just a dominant coach. He's just always going to have those boys playing at a top level. Moving to number three, I actually put Michigan back up at number three here. And that's just due to the loss to Wisconsin not being as bad as the loss that Iowa State saw versus Kansas. Um, I just think Wisconsin has been showing that they're a solid team recently. I personally think that they're a top 25 team right now, just based on their resume and their wins recently. But Michigan's just balanced. I mean, Lendenborg is awesome. They have a good point guard in Elliot Cadeau. I personally did not like him coming from UNC last year, but he has certainly shown a lot of improvement, especially in his 3 point game. Um, and yeah, if they keep playing like this, they're going to be there at the end of the year as well. I certainly do not see them bouncing before the first weekend in any situation. Moving down to number four, I have Iowa State. I still love them. I think they're a really good team. I just had to drop them after that Kansas loss. I think personally, Michigan's resume right now is just a little bit better, but they're still a top five team very easily. The only major concern I can see with them is they just do not really have rim protection right now, which could be a very, very, very big piece in March that is missing, especially with 3 pointers not being as reliable in March. You want to have guys that can get downhill and get to the rim, um, especially on teams with bigger players. You're going to want to try and get them in foul trouble. I just think that their rim protection could be their undoing in March. That's just the one glaring issue that I see with this team. Moving to number five, I have Purdue. They're just always solid. Braden Smith is one of the best players in the country. There's no doubt about that in my mind. And then add in Lawyer and Kaufman Wren. They've just been providing a lot of what they need, especially on defense from Kaufman Wren. I mean, he's a great defender. They have a similar problem as Iowa State, though. They just do not have much rim protection. They have one guy averaging 2 blocks per game, but he only plays 15 minutes. So I don't think that's personally enough. The rest of the team combines for 1.5 blocks per game. That's just very minimal rim protection if your rim protector is only playing 15 minutes a game. I mean, he's playing a less than a half a game. I just, again, like I said with Iowa State, rim protection is just so important in March. And teams without rim protection just really seem to struggle. They get into foul trouble, and I just think this is another concern for Purdue that really might rear its ugly head in March. But as of right now, they're elite. With Braden Smith, the sky's the limit for them. And at number six, I have my Duke Blue Devils. I personally believe that I could put them above Purdue, but just removing my own personal bias, I decided to keep them at six. Cam Boozer, obviously, legit Naismith contender. I personally think he's probably in the lead for it right now, just based on how he's been playing. But he is just awesome. Even in games where he's having a quiet game, you'll look at the end of the game and see he has 22, 12, and 5. Like, this dude is just awesome. He fills the stat sheet. He's strong. He's smart. He knows how to win, and is willing to do what it takes to win. Only complaint I have with him is sometimes it seems like he takes off a possession on defense or two, but when you're providing that type of output on offense, it's just hard to ask a guy to buy into every single defensive possession. Um, and with the development of Isaiah Evans as well, just becoming more consistent, he's obviously a flamethrower from deep, but now he's starting to put the ball on the floor and get to the rim a little bit more. I really think that'll open up a ton for his game. If he can add the threat that he's going to get to the rim and can score around the rim when he does, he's going to be a really tough guard. I just really think that he's going to cause a lot of problems for teams, especially in March and down the year. And yeah, if he adds that to his game, he is going to be one of the best offensive players in the nation. Malik Brown, one of the best defenders in the nation. I'm not sure if that's really arguable at this point, but he's certainly in the top five at least. And yeah, he just adds a whole nother element to them, especially on defense. As I said, he just really gives them a lot to look forward to, and especially being in passing lanes, and just his hands are incredible. I mean, if you're dribbling the ball around him loosely, you will lose it. He will pick you, and it will go the other way for two. On top of Malik Brown, Dame Sar has been awesome. I really think that Louisville game was exactly what he needed and exactly what he needed to show. He was awesome on defense, pretty much took Conwell completely out of the game in the second half once Shire threw him on there. And if he's going to provide that type of lockdown perimeter defense for this Duke team, they're going to be a very scary team alongside of if Foster can provide what he provided in that Louisville game. Even if he just gives them 80% of what he gave them, this team is going to be really scary. I really don't think that there's anybody above them that I would take over them when they're at their best, but you can say that about pretty much any team. Any team who's not playing at their best can be beaten by anybody, and any team playing at their best can most likely beat anybody. But I just really think that this Duke team has a lot of the pieces. They're really versatile in their starting lineup. Their shortest guy is Caleb Foster, who's 6'5". Just provides them a lot of length. They don't necessarily have a traditional rim protecting big man, but yeah, they certainly have a lot of the pieces to be there at the end in March. Moving to 7, I have Houston. Not going to spend too much time here. It's a Kelvin Sampson team. They're going to play elite defense. Offense is going to struggle at times. But they did return a lot of key guys from that Final Four run last year, which I think is huge for them. Obviously beating my Duke Blue Devils in the Final Four, which was extremely heartbreaking. But I think they're going to be right there again this year. Not sure about a Final Four run, but an Elite Eight run I can easily see. And Flemings, that freshman they have, is a baller. That kid can score. I think he'll provide them a lot of the offensive output that they'll need to compete with these teams towards the end of the year. But yeah, it's a Kelvin Sampson team. They're going to be good. Same with Gonzaga. I have them number 8. Mark Few is a great coach. They're going to be in the conversation all year. Obviously, out in the WCC, the schedule is pretty weak, but they are still a very legit team. Braden Huff's jump has been pretty impressive. He went from averaging, I think, 11 points per game last year to almost 18. Graham Ike is a dominant big man, and they shoot 37% from 3 as a team, which is just really good, and I think that's really going to contribute to them being ready by the end of March. At 9, I have Nebraska. They're just a really good team. I haven't had a chance to watch them too much, but they're just beating good teams and crushing others. With Sanford, Mast, and Frager, it just seems like they have 3 different forwards that they can kind of throw at you and give you different looks, almost similar to what Florida has. But yeah, I just think they can create a lot of matchup problems for people. They just beat the crap out of Oregon last night. And yeah, it's just hard to ignore what they're doing right now. They're just a really good team. Moving to number 10, I have BYU. This is one of the most fun teams to watch in the nation right now. AJ DeBansta has absolutely lived up to the hype. And then you add in Saunders and Wright, who give them a lot more scoring depth as well. They can score with anyone. They're kind of like Bama in a way, but they're a little bit better on defense, definitely a little stronger. But yeah, they can score with anyone. They're going to be there as well. I think this is definitely going to be a top 16 team by the end of the year, and certainly see them making the Sweet 16. Not sure where they'll go after that. They'll go as far as DeBansta and Wright can take them, in my opinion. But yeah, I certainly think that they can compete with anyone. Moving down to 11, I have Michigan State here. With only 2 losses on the season and both being the top 10 caliber teams, I just have them right outside the top 10. Fears is awesome. He's a great point guard. He's been improving steadily throughout the year. Cohen Carr is about as electric as you can get. That dude jumps out of the building and is one of the most athletic players I think I've seen in college in quite some time. And then Kohler. Kohler's been really giving them a lot here. He's averaging a double-double and shooting 86% from the free throw line. I think that's just really good to have as a big man. A big man that can shoot from the line and grab boards for you while averaging over 10 points per game. It's pretty much all you need in college. He's not necessarily dominant, but he's certainly very good and is a great role player for that team and fits in perfectly for Izzo. Moving down to 12, I got Illinois. Analytically, they're just very good. They have 5 players averaging 10-plus points per game, which I think is a great luxury to have, especially towards the end of the season when you're getting down into March. You're going to have guys that are off on certain nights, not having the best games, and having 4 other guys you can look to for scoring options is going to be a great luxury for Illinois to have. They got 3 guards that can give you 20-plus in Wagler, Boswell, and Stojakovic. And I just really like what they got. I like their team makeup. I think guards is one of the biggest pieces in March and what will carry you the farthest. So with them having three guards that can all give you 20 any night, I certainly think that they'll be there at the end as well. At 13, I had to move them down a little bit just based on that blowout loss to Texas, but I do think that they're slightly underrated. Miles and Tanner in that backcourt is elite. I think it matches up against any backcourt in the nation. Despite the rough Texas game, I think they got a really interesting stretch coming up here that's really going to show how good they are. They got Florida coming up this weekend, and then I believe Arkansas. Uh, Really looking forward to both of those games. I think those will both be very good games. I personally believe that Florida will give them a run for their money and potentially beat them. But then I think that they'll bounce back and beat Arkansas. Just in my opinion, that's what I think will happen. Obviously, could go either way. The SEC is just going to be really tough this year, but I really do think Vanderbilt's going to turn it around here and get back onto the path that they were on. Moving down to 14, I have Texas Tech. Aside from that blowout against Purdue, they've been really good all year. All four of their losses have come to ranked teams, and all of them have been competitive, like I said, except for the Purdue game. Toppin and Anderson is an elite duo. I mean, you have a great guard and a great big man or forward that can give you 20 plus every single night. And honestly, both of them could give you 30 in any night. I just really like what they have. I really was impressed with them after that Duke game as well, and just think that they have a lot of talent there. I think they're going to be another team that should be in the running for the Big 12 championship. I think they'll certainly be there in the semifinals, and it'll just depend on who can win those games. I mean, those are going to all be tough games at the end there. At number 15, I have Virginia. This is not your typical Virginia team. They are definitely not nearly as good as they are or usually on defense, but they are way better than they usually are on offense. I really like DeRitter. I think he's going to be a problem, especially in ACC play. And they just have a much more modern team this year. I really think that they're going to be a good team by the end of the year. I personally think that Louisville has a little bit more than them when they're fully healthy, but certainly think that Virginia can rival Duke for the ACC championship as well. At number 16, I have Florida. Definitely think you could argue them over Virginia at this point. They had a bad Missouri loss, I think 2 weeks ago, but they really bounced back strong. They blew out two very, very, very good teams. They have a very versatile front court, like I mentioned earlier. They got three big men that they can throw at you that give you different looks. And pretty much what they did against Duke in that game to try and stop Cam Boozer or slow him down at least. And then Boogie Fland. I mean, he's a good point guard. He's been playing a lot better recently. And if he continues, I think that they're going to end up being a top 12 team by the end of the year. At 17, I have Alabama. They're just kind of the same story every year under Oates. They can't guard anybody, but if they're hot, they can beat anybody. I mean, they could put up 100 any given night, but if they go cold, they have some really ugly losses or can lose to some really bad teams as well. If they can figure it out on defense, I really think that they're going to be an elite team, but until then, I just don't think that they're there yet. At 18, finishing up with my third SEC team in a row here, I have Arkansas. I just think they deserve a top 20 spot. That Auburn loss was pretty ugly, but Auburn's been playing a lot better recently as well. I think with Acuff and Thomas, they can just both pour in buckets. They have a really high ceiling, but they also have a low floor as well. I could very easily see them being a first-round exit again under Cal. They have the talent certainly to be there, but just as of right now, just not playing up to standard. At 19, I got Clemson. Especially after all these losses that have kind of happened, I had to rearrange my last 18 to 25. But they're just solid. They're solid across the board. They don't really have a great star or someone who's going to be a top 20 player in the nation, but they have great players across the board and a lot of players who just know how to play a role in an offense. Um, my one concern, they're shooting around 33% from three as a team. Just a little too low. I'd like to see them get that up to around 35% just to be more of a contender. But certainly right now, I think they're a top 20 team. And at number 20, I have Villanova. They're not flashy at all, but they're just competitive. They just win. They're in a lot of close games that they just seem to pull out. I think that Creighton loss was ugly. I had them higher before that loss, but after that I had to drop them a little bit. This St. John's game upcoming will be really telling. I think that's going to be a really good game, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how they compete in that one. I really like a Caden Lewis. I think he's a really good player, and like I said, guard play is huge in March, so I think that they'll go as far as he can take them. At number 21, I have Miami, Florida. They're just a really intriguing team. I really like Shelton Henderson's game a lot. The one thing that he needs to figure out is a three ball. If he can figure out how to start connecting from deep a little more consistently, look out because they're going to be a very dangerous team, and he is going to be easily a top 10 pick in the NBA draft, I believe, if he can figure out that 3 point game. If he doesn't, his game is a little bit limited, but getting downhill is not a problem for him. He's really athletic, really strong, and just a smart player, especially for a freshman. I really do think that they're another team along with Clemson, Virginia, and Louisville that can compete with Duke for the ACC championship by the end of the year. At number 22, I have Utah State. They're another team that just has a really weak schedule, but I think at this point, everybody has some pretty bad losses. Their only loss is to South Florida, which, again, is not the prettiest loss, but as I said, most teams at this point have at least a bad loss in this range, and I think that they just deserve this respect. I think they deserve a top 25 nod. They can certainly upset someone in March. Their two guards, Falsev and Collins, can pour in buckets. Um, and if you don't take them out of the game in March, it is going to be a long day and a very scary day. I don't know if we can necessarily call it an upset because they'll probably be ranked around the 9 or 8 range, but I certainly think they can win a game and even potentially upset another team in the second round as well. At 23, I hesitated to keep them this high, but I have Tennessee. They're just very inconsistent. They seem to follow a little bit of a pattern. They have one big game where they rattle off a really good win, and then they just put up a stinker in the next game. Um, just really weird, very inconsistent. If they can get to be more consistent, I think that they're going to be a top 20 team by the end of the season. They have a lot of talent. I like Nate Ament a lot. Um, and add in Gillespie. He's a very good scoring guard. I think they could be top 20 by the end of the year, just not there yet. At 24, this might be a little bit controversial. I have St. John's. I just think that they've been playing really impressive lately. Uh, like I said, with when I was covering Nova, I think this matchup between them two is going to be a great game, and it's going to tell a lot about each team. But yeah, they just have a lot of momentum right now. They've been really dominating recently, and I think that they're going to continue to. I think they have the talent to be a top 20 team, as I said about Tennessee. But again, just not there yet. Start of the season was really rough. So would like to see them put it a little bit together more here. And at 25, I have Wisconsin. I just think they deserve it right now, especially after that game against Michigan. They have one of the best wins in the country. With Boyd and Blackwell, they have a really strong backcourt. And just recently, they've been playing really good. They've been pulling out games and finding ways to win. I think they're just balanced and really tough. If their 3 point if their 3 point shot is falling, they're going to be a tough out. But if it's not, they can definitely be beaten. Unfortunately, with the top 25, I of course had to leave some teams out, but did just want to give some of these teams some love here that I think deserve to be in the conversation at least, or will be in the conversation towards as the year progresses. I had Miami, Ohio, just outside the top 25. I mean, listen, they're another really weak scheduled team. They have no losses though right now, and I just think it's really hard to knock a team for winning. They got six guys averaging 10 plus per game, which is incredible. That is a great luxury to have, as I mentioned, with other teams come March when you might not be getting the scoring output that you typically do from other players. And I just think that they're definitely going to win their conference, and I think that they're going to sneak into the top 25 here very shortly, especially if they keep winning. If they get to 20-0, it's going to be very hard to keep them out of the top 25. Moving on to the ACC, I have three teams that I just think deserve to be mentioned here. One being Louisville. I said this before. If Michael Brown gets healthy, they're going to be a top 20 team. They just have a lot of talent. They can score. They can play defense. They're just a really good team. They really impressed me against Duke, especially without Michael Brown. And even against UVA, I think they held their own very well without Michael Brown. They were expecting to get him back for that game. But even without him, only losing by 9 to a very good Virginia team was not necessarily anything to harp on. And I just dropped them outside of my top 25 just because as of right now, without Michael Brown, it's hard to put them up higher. Next, I got UNC. Talked about them a little extensively earlier, but that injury to Seth Trimble was a blow to begin the year. But they really need to start trending upwards now that he's back. With Vasar and Caleb Wilson, they can compete with anyone else's front court very easily, but without guard play, they're just going to be very limited. SMU, one of my favorite players to watch in the nation right now is Boopy Miller. I feel really bad for Virginia Tech after that game last night and their stretch of tough losses, but Boopy reminded us why he's so much fun to watch. Look out for them if you haven't watched them at all. Definitely give them a look. They're going to cause a lot of problems for good teams in the ACC. And another team that I really think could finish in the top 25 very easily. I think any of these three teams finishing in the top 25 would not surprise me at all out of the ACC. After a really down year in the ACC last year, they've really turned it around, and it looks like it's going to be a really competitive and fun year in the ACC. One team I got on the docket from the Big 12 is Kansas. This is simple. If Darren Peterson's healthy, they're a top 20 team easily. Could even be seen as a top 15 team. However, that's still up in the air. He hasn't been able to consistently play. He's been getting hurt at the end of the games, needing to come out for cramping. I think that win against ISU was huge and exactly what the doctor ordered for Self and his team. But they just need to hold this momentum. They need to rattle off a couple more wins and come up with some big wins here in the Big 12 play. In the Big East, I have Seton Hall. I think they're just right outside the top teams right now, especially with their three-point shooting that I mentioned earlier. It's just a really big concern, and it's just something that they need to figure out for me to confidently put them ahead of other teams, especially other teams in the Big East as well, like St. John's and Villanova. Villanova just beat them 2 weeks ago. St. John's is playing much better right now. Seton Hall did just have a really good game against UConn, like we discussed earlier, but I just need to see more. And moving down to the WCC, no surprise here. Still going to be ran by Gonzaga with St. Mary's following close behind. But another team to watch out for, I think, is Santa Clara. They're a really good team. They're solid. Not anything flashy. I don't necessarily think that they're better than Gonzaga or St. Mary's, but I absolutely think that they could give them a run for their money in the WCC tournament later this year. And certainly think that they could beat them in the regular season as well. Last but not least, who can forget about the Billikens out of St. Louis? They just had a really strong start to the season. They've been getting some votes to crack the top 25 recently here in the past couple weeks. They're 16-1. Robbie Avila is fun to watch. I love him. And they're just kind of a similar team to Miami, Ohio. They got 6 guys averaging double figures. Again, just a luxury to have, especially when you're going to have some dudes that are having off nights and things like that. Being able to get the ball to other players and see what they can create for you is just a very big luxury to have. And I just really think that this is a team that people are not going to want to see in the first round, especially as a 12 seed. I think that's around where they're going to be, the 12-5 dreaded matchup. And I really think that they're going to be the team to look out for to knock a number 5 seed off later in the year. Looking ahead at the schedule, there's not too many games that I have circled for the rest of the week aside from Saturday, which is loaded. I have four games that I have circled for Saturday, technically five if you count Duke. Um, but let's get into some of the games that I think are going to be ones to watch and keep an eye on this weekend. First, we got Tennessee and Kentucky. That game's going to tip off at noon on Saturday, and I'm just really interested to see that matchup between OA and Gillespie. I think that's two of the better guards in the nation going against each other. Both can score really well, and just going to be fun to watch them go back and forth all game. But another name I'm going to watch in this game is Nate Ament. For this Tennessee team to be there at the end of the year, they're really going to need to see him continually improve throughout the year. I think after his rough start to the beginning of the year, he's really turned it around. But they're just going to need to keep seeing improvement out of him if they're going to compete for a championship at the end of the year. Next up, I got Miami and Clemson on the docket. I just think this is going to be a really good ACC matchup. As a Duke fan, I'm really looking forward to seeing these two face off against each other. Godfrey and Henderson facing off against each other as an individual matchup should be very fun to watch as well. And I personally think that we are going to see an upset here. I know it's not going to be a big upset. I expect that spread to be somewhere around the 5 range. But I think Miami's going to go in there and win. I really do. I really like what Miami has. Their coach, Lucas, is awesome. He came from Duke. I liked him at Duke a lot. Was really upset to see him leave at the end of the year last year. But yeah, they're just a really impressive team, and I think that they're due for a really big win here. Next up at 4 o'clock, we'll have Arkansas, Georgia. Another really fun game. I think it's going to be a great game to watch from start to finish. Both teams love to push the ball, so I am looking forward to a barn burner, very high scoring game, very high paced game. And I don't know if Arkansas is going to want to get into a running match with Georgia, just because I think that will favor Georgia slightly, as they just seem to be a little bit of a faster team. But I believe that is what it's going to be. So just really hoping to see a lot of scoring in this game and just hoping for a fun matchup. Lastly, I have Texas Tech and BYU. This should be no surprise. Probably the best game of the weekend. Just another loaded matchup with two of the top players going off against each other. Toppin and Nebansta is going to be absolute cinema. I think having both of these teams in the top 15 already, as myself, I really think this game is going to live up to the hype, and really looking forward to watch this one. I will be seated for it in its entirety, and hoping that that Duke-Stanford game does not go over time, just so that I can catch the entire game. But obviously, I will be watching Duke-Stanford as well. Probably will provide a little bit of analysis on that game as well. Just want to see how Corey matches up against Duke and how Duke plans to take him out of the game. But yeah, look for me to provide a little bit of a breakdown on that game as well on Sunday for my next episode. Other than that, that will do it for today's episode of the CBB Yapper. Thanks for listening along, and if you enjoyed the podcast, give us a like, subscribe, and look for new episodes on Sundays and Thursdays.